Good, y'all. Let's talk about David Benavidez's upcoming fight against Anthony Yarde November 22nd. This fight is going to take place on the same card as Devin Haney versus Brian Norman Jr. And I think that this is a very dangerous fight for David Benavidez, man. I see a lot of people saying that this is going to be an easy fight for David and, Anthony Yarde, every time he steps up, he loses. But I don't think people are really looking at the fight for what it is. And I want to explain to you guys why David Benavidez might lose this fight, right? Now, the last time we seen David Benavidez stop somebody was when he fought Demetrius Andrade in 2023. That was his last fight at 168 pounds. He could have forced himself to be the mandatory for Canelo Alvarez. But David Benavidez at that point, he knew that Canelo didn't want to fight him, so he decided to pretty much just move up to a light heavyweight division. Because remember, Canelo was signed to PBC and they were in negotiations and they threw multiple offers at Canelo. They pretty much tried to force Canelo to fight David. He didn't want to do it. And that's when Canelo pretty much threatened to go back to the zone, right? So David said, you know what? If this guy doesn't want to fight me, I'm going to go up to light heavyweight and I'm going to fight the guys like Bivol and Better Beef, and I'm going to prove to everybody that I'm the best, right? So David moves up to 175. He has his first fight June 15, 2024 against Oleksandr Gvozdyk. And listen, he dominated this fight. I would say that he pretty much won all 12 rounds. But the number one thing that I noticed in this fight is David's power did not translate from 168 to 175. There was no point in this fight against Gvozdyk, even though he outboxed him for pretty much all 12 rounds. There wasn't one point in this fight where he noticeably hurt this guy. And that was very alarming to me. And I also noticed that the punches that was landing on David Benavidez from Gvozdyk, it was hurting David Benavidez. If you look at his face after the fight, his face was battered up. Those punches was hurting David, right? Obviously, David is a tough guy. I'm not saying that David got wobbled. I'm not saying that David almost got dropped. What I'm saying is when those punches were landing, you can look at David's face and see, like, he was feeling the power in the light heavyweight division, which is perfectly normal, right? We've seen the same thing with Terrence Crawford when he moved from 147 to 154 and he fought Majimov. When you move up in weight, you're going in there with guys that punch harder, right? So that's normal, right? So I didn't think much of it. I was concerned. I was like, that's interesting that David, he didn't drop this guy one time. He didn't knock him out. I found that very interesting, but I said, you know what? It's his first fight, right? He's in the light heavyweight division. These guys are bigger. These guys are more stronger. They're going to punch harder, right? So let's talk about his second fight at light heavyweight, right? His second fight is a fight that took place this year, February 1st. David Benavidez fought David Morrell, right? Now, this fight is what let me know that there's something off with David Benavidez, right? David Morrell dropped David Benavidez in this fight, and he hurt David Benavidez in this fight more than once, right? Now, me personally, bro, I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I had David Morrell winning this fight. The judges felt otherwise. The judges say he won by unanimous decision. I was very impressed with David Morrell. Let me explain why. When David Benavidez and David Morrell fought, David Morrell only had 11 professional fights. And he was coming off of a victory against Hot Rod that wasn't impressive, right? A lot of people think that David Morrell lost to Hot Rod. So the fact that he took this fight with David Benavidez and he was that successful, bro, like, David Morrell really impressed me in that fight with Benavidez. He obviously was the more heavy puncher. He was throwing the bigger punches. He was throwing punches that were more effective. And there was no point in the fight where David Benavidez hurt David Morrell. He didn't drop David Morrell, but David Morrell dropped David Benavidez. He had David Benavidez on the back foot at certain points in this fight. And I think that Morrell doesn't get the credit that he deserves for his performance against David Benavidez. So with that being said, based off of David's first two fights at light heavyweight, I think it's safe to say David Benavidez's power has not translated from 168 to 175. And that's a problem because you're taking this fight with Anthony Yarde, who he's been at light heavyweight for pretty much his whole professional career, right? And this guy has been in there with killers, right? He obviously fought Sergey Kovalev back in 2019. He got knocked out. He has, I think, 3 fights with Lyndon Arthur. He lost the first fight by split decision. The second fight, he knocked out Lyndon Arthur. And the third fight, which is his most recent fight, he won by unanimous decision, right? He also has a fight with Arthur Beterbiev, and he got knocked out in the 8th round. But out of all of Beterbiev's fights besides the one with Bivol, Anthony Yarde had the most success against Arthur Beterbiev. He hurt Beterbiev in that fight. He could have won that fight, but in the 8th round, he got knocked out, right? If you go back and watch that fight, Anthony Yarde was actually winning in the beginning of the fight. Like I said, he was winning the beginning of the fight. There was points where he hurt Beterbiev. Beterbiev just ended up stopping him in the 8th round. But like I said, besides Beterbiev's fights with Bivol, he had the most success against Beterbiev to where he made it look like this guy is not the Terminator. You know what I'm saying? Because up until that point, Beterbiev won all of his fights by TKO. The only fights that Beterbiev hasn't won by TKO is the ones with Bivol, which is 2. So, we got to give credit when it's due, man. So you're going in there with a guy that has more experience. Anthony Yarde has more experience at light heavyweight. Anthony Yarde, his punches are more heavy at light heavyweight, right? He has a better KO ratio at light heavyweight. You understand what I'm saying? So, you're going in there with a guy that's big. Anthony Yarde has power. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't back down. And he's going in there looking for the knockout. So if you got hurt by David Morrell, who only had 11 professional fights when you fought him, and now you're going in there with Anthony Yarde, who already has 30 fights, right? A majority of them are in the light heavyweight division. I think all of them are in the light heavyweight division. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. And he has more experience at light heavyweight. So this is a dangerous fight for David Benavidez. Now, I want to explain to you guys why I think David Benavidez's power has not translated to 175. It's because David is not working on his strength and conditioning, bro. If you look at David Benavidez's body, no Diddy. If you look at his body, David Benavidez has a dad bod, bro. He has no muscles. He has no six-pack. David Benavidez obviously doesn't lift weights, bro. He doesn't. Like, let's be honest. He was weight bullying at 168. He should have never fought in that division. He was weight bullying at 168. He was always taller, had longer arms, and was bigger than the guys he was fighting, which is why he was completely dominating that division. And that's why Canelo didn't want to fight him. You understand what I'm saying? Canelo knows that David Benavidez was weight bullying. Let's just call it what it is, right? You look at all of his KOs, they're against guys that's much smaller than him. He stopped Anthony Durrell because Anthony Durrell's eyelid split open. I think Anthony Durrell was winning the fight up until that point. He stopped Kyron Davis. He stopped David Lemieux. Think about this, right? He beat Caleb Plant by unanimous decision. Canelo Alvarez stopped Caleb Plant. So that's very telling. Like, you put David Benavidez in there with a skillful boxer like Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant has success early in the fight, and after Caleb got tired, he just completely got dominated. But I think that's what it is, man. David Benavidez, he's not taking care of his body. If you even look at the press conference with David Benavidez and Anthony Yarde, David Benavidez is fat right now, bro. His face is blown up. You can clearly tell that when this guy is not boxing, he gets overweight, right? Like, he eats a lot of bad food. He's not taking care of himself. And that's why you don't see David Benavidez dominating in this new weight class, because he's not doing what he needs to do when you move up the weight. David Benavidez has to work on his strength and conditioning, bro. He has to start lifting weights, put some muscle on, work on your core, do some ab workouts, because you going in there with Anthony Yarde. Anthony Yarde, and I'm not saying muscles win fights, but Anthony Yarde is a very strong dude, bro, which is why he was able to have the success that he had against Beterbiev. Anthony Yarde is extremely athletic. He's got muscles on top of muscles. He's got a six-pack. And the dude has KO punching power. You understand what I'm saying? So if David Benavidez goes into this fight with the same body type that he's had with his first 2 fights at light heavyweight. You know, if he comes in with the dad bod, no 6-pack, no muscles on your arms, I'm telling you guys, you heard it here first, bro. David Benavidez is possibly going to get knocked out. Because, like, bruh, this is light heavyweight, bro. These dudes is punching, bro. If you got dropped by David Morrell, right? If you come into this fight with Yarde the same way you came in against David Morrell, I can almost guarantee you David Benavidez is going to get dropped or possibly knocked out. I can guarantee you that. So that's my prediction. If David comes into this fight serious, if he comes in training the right way, if he puts on some muscle, if you know, like, guys, whenever we have the weigh-in, that's going to tell you everything you need to know about this fight. When it comes to the weigh-in, if David Benavidez got that normal dad bod where he clearly didn't work out, didn't lift weights, didn't do ab workouts and none of that, he just pretty much just lost weight to make weight, he's not winning this fight. He's not. Because when it comes to the heavier weight classes, guys, when it comes to the heavyweight division, the light heavyweight division, the cruiserweight division, power matters. It does. Like, power matters. Like, the guy that has more power and a decent skill set has a higher chance of winning than the guy that just has the skill set and is not training properly, right? There's rare instances like, you know, Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, Alexander Usyk, AJ, Alexander Usyk, Dubois. You know, look, like, guys, think about this. Francis Ngannou, who's an MMA fighter, he came to boxing and fought Tyson Fury and dropped him. Think about that. Francis Ngannou, who's an MMA fighter, who's never been a professional boxer, had his first fight against Tyson Fury, who was the best heavyweight boxer in boxing at the time. Fought Tyson Fury, dropped him, and a majority of people think that he beat Tyson Fury. That's what happens when you fight at heavyweight, light heavyweight, and cruiserweight, bro. Power matters. And Anthony Yarde has power, and he got a skill set. Anthony Yarde's biggest critique is his stamina, bro. Because he's so muscular, after the 6th or 7th round, he starts getting very tired, and he doesn't like to move around at that point. And if the fight goes that long, then David Benavidez will probably just beat him, just outbox him, or probably, you know, he could possibly stop him, possibly, right? So that's my thoughts on this, man. I think the fact that David Benavidez's power has not translated to light heavyweight, and the fact that Benavidez has not been lifting weights and really working on his body and working on his strength and conditioning, I think that that's very concerning, bro. I do. I think it's very concerning for a guy that moved up to a new weight class and he's planning on fighting somebody like Dimitri Bivol. This version that we're seeing of David Benavidez is not beating Dimitri Bivol. He's not beating Arthur Beterbiev. It's just not happening, bro. It's not. Like, David Benavidez is treating 175 like it's still 168. And it's not, because the guys that you're fighting are either the same size as you or they're bigger than you. You understand what I'm saying? Everybody you were dominating at 168 was way smaller than you, bro. These guys at light heavyweights, they're monsters, bro. So let me know what you guys think, man. That's my prediction. It's your boy Wavy. Stay Wavy TV. Make sure y'all subscribe, thumbs up the video, leave a comment. I'm out.